I'm back. And now I have something very fancy to show off that I've been working on for a little while. And if you just pay attention to right here, it kind of looks like a familiar law. There you go. It's a macro manager. This macro manager, in its current state, can do more than the vast majority of macro managers or macro software that anyone uses on a daily basis. The ones that come with your keyboard, dog shit. The ones that you download off GitHub, besides this one, dog shit. All bad. They're all shit. Now, I have used some that have some extraordinarily advanced features like character recognition, image detection. All of that will be added to this eventually. I wanted to get the core functions working before I started adding in being able to make functions and logic gates and OCR and all the fancy stuff. I just wanted to get it working. Now, to use it, it's very simple. You can just do this to assign a macro to a key like any other software. Something that most programs don't have is you can assign a macro to multiple keys. So now if you press all these three within a time frame, the time frame is here. You can decide how many times you have to press one key. You can decide if you want it to be held down or pressed for that to. This is a bug. This being cut off, that's a bug. I'll fix that. Um, also, I'm going to move these just for ease of seeing what is going on. There is a heads-up display that tells you how to activate the macro. It also shows you when the macro is active. I will demonstrate that with just doing this, and we'll do like an auto walk, and we'll do always active. Scale it down a little bit. Actually, we'll scale it up so you can see it better. We'll make it kind of like this, and then if we press E, we'll do auto repeat, and you can see when the macro is active, it lights up. So, like, if you're someone like me and you run a lot of macros, sometimes it gets extremely frustrating that you can forget that you have a macro running. You're like, well, why the fuck can't I open this box? It's because you have a macro spamming F, or you have a macro on that's holding F, or whatever it is, right? You just forget you had the macro on, especially if you're using a lot. So having the heads up display kind of makes it so you will just be able to, at a quick glance, see what you have running. Okay, now I'm going to get into some of the technical difficulties of making macro software like this, where you have so much control over what keys you're putting macros on and how kind of the operating system deals with pushing through key presses and how I went all about that. So if I'll remove this. So right now, I am entirely overriding W's native function. You no longer can press W. W does not exist anymore. It is a macro key, which is how traditional macro software works. When you bind a macro to a key, you lose function of that key. I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all because I still want to be able to press W. Um, so I did this. Now you can have a trigger key. When this trigger key is held down, then it'll activate the macro if you press all the buttons required to activate the macro. Otherwise, every button in this macro will work as its default function. So now you can press W again. And the only way that you won't be able to press W is if you're holding down your trigger key. This time out thing doesn't matter if you only have it set to one press. So I could gray it out, but no one likes grayed out options in software. You know what? Those always piss me off. I like leaving it open. What else? Okay, so you can assign a macro to the same key. So I could do like this. And now you can see that this key is being used for two functions. That is a horribly ugly color. That is also if you press control, if you hold control and click, it'll select the whole macro. It'll be easier to see if I do something like this. I'll do like this, and if I were to hold control and click, it'll select every key in that macro. Oh yeah, I was annoyed with the color because it was ugly. Let's just go. That is still ugly. I don't think this is, why am I doing this? This is not worth my time. Anyways, so you can see if a key has multiple macros assigned to it, and there isn't a limit to how many times that you can do this. You could assign a couple to this one to that one. You could just, you could do you could do whatever you want, and it's still like selecting the whole macro still works as normal. You can assign more than one macro to one key. you could do this, and you could say, make this one like this. Default, we'll do this. And then you could just change the parameters to how you activate this. So say we want the trigger for this one to be tab, the trigger for that one to be shift. So now you could activate an auto walk and an auto run with the same key and just a different modifier to it. And as before, you could turn always on and always on. And you could see both of these are W with a different modifier. That is pretty much everything there is for this page. Oh, there is a calibration page, which will detect what your keyboard layout is. So you tell the software every key that you have by pressing every key on your keyboard. While you're doing this, it says here, but your keys are suppressed. The only two that I wasn't able to suppress, at least for Windows, is your Windows keys. So if you press Windows, it's still going to pop this up. You only have to ever do it twice. Press Windows twice while you're it's only going to annoy you twice. The whole time you use the software, you'll be annoyed 2 times until you find bugs, and in that case, you'll be annoyed a lot more. For the actual macro creation page, this is what it looks like. Right now, I guess I'll show you kind of what it looks like when you are recording a macro. You can save it or clear it or whatever have you. You can put in fixed delays. You can record actual locations of mouse movements. So you can also just go in and edit this. Um, so if you wanted your mouse to be clicked over here, over there, whatever, very simple. You can go in and edit this. There's a lot of things I'm going to add. I'm going to change this from add keystroke to insert, and then in insert it's going to be a drop down that'll be keystrokes, mouse movements, functions. You'll be able to make your own custom functions. Like if I wanted all of this to be a function, you would be able to make it be a function. There is going to be functions for inserting text, so you could like have a text box, type in a message you want it to put in, and then instead of having to press every key and that be all messy for like typing in just like hello or whatever, it would just be a function that you could name be what the function does. I'm gonna be adding OCR. I'm gonna be adding in like image detection, so you could like say like I'm looking for an image in this part of the screen. If you find it, do this. Um, what else? I think that is mostly everything. Oh, in there's profiles. I'm sure that's like pretty apparent. Um, in here you have the settings for the profile. You can have it automatically switch to that profile when it sees an exe launch, and you have control over every color, um, every color that you could want to have control over in the GUI. There is settings for that. I will make theme templates later, and like animation templates and like make it look all pretty. But for the time being, it's the core functions that I'm trying to get working. And I think like right now it does work. I've tested it in games and it does do what you want it to. Um, I'm going to test it for a prolonged amount of time before I make it public access because I want to make sure that the way that I'm communicating with the operating system isn't triggering anti-cheat for games, especially with lower level anti-cheats. Um, it's obviously not a cheating software. It's the same as any other macro software. Games that are okay with you using the built-in macro software on your keyboard should be okay with this because all I'm doing is telling the operating system to press keys. That's or move the mouse. The moving the mouse part, you might need to be careful with that. And if I run into issues, I'll obviously put a warning on when people are going to make a macro that moves the mouse. I think that's pretty much it. I think that kind of explains everything I wanted to go over when it comes to this. It will eventually be public, but not open source. I don't really like sharing the code for my projects because I do really dumb things when it comes to software engineering. And there might be some minor security flaws that could be found if I made it open source. So I don't do that. Oh, also, one last thing, one last little thing. I want it to be very easy to share both profiles and macros from inside the user interface. The way that I think I'm going to do this is you'll be able to go to a macro you created, you'll be able to right click on it, and then there will be a thing to make public. When you make it public, it'll be assigned a unique ID and uploaded to an AWS server. There will also then be a button for downloading profiles and macros. You will type in the code that your friend would have given you or whatever, and then it will go to AWS and request that file. So then you could, inside the user interface, share profiles and share macros. I think that summarizes all of it for the time being. I will be adding a mouse that'll go over here so you can do all your mouse macros. So you can assign macros to your mouse, and it'll be all in one software, which, in my opinion, is really nice because that's like, I don't know, you should have one software that does everything. Anyways, I hope you approve of my system that I have come up with here, and if you don't, I will go cry. Have a good day, ladies and gentlemen, and the 52 other things.